All right. Man, I had to scramble there. I forgot to hit go live button. We were 22 seconds into the countdown and I hadn't even gone live. What's up, Restoration Nation? What's up, Restoration Rebels? Ian McCabe here. We got a brand new guest on the show tonight, Jay Webb. Got Mr. Maui, Robert Larson, in here. But first, we're going to do what we do. Here we go. These are the rules. They're Rebel agreements. Number one, I will protect the value of my services. Offering free services only serves to erode the value of similar services industry-wide. Number two, I will practice incredible transparency. I will explain the claim process to my client. I will not hide pricing details or falsify reports. I will never communicate with an adjuster without also communicating with my client. Agreement number three, I do not believe in competition. Man, that should be agreement number one. This is the heart and soul of this group. The restoration companies in my market are part of my community. I will be an active member of my community. It is our unbreakable unity that will create the change that we strive for. And number four, I am willing to walk away from any project, client, or contract that is not compatible with my values and stated mission. No relationship is worth losing money, sleep, or my humanity. Can I get a wah?
Truth.
Bam. I tell you what, I am super stoked tonight. I don't know what Jennifer Marie is trying to get in the room. Hey, I'm telling you. All right, we're gonna pause the whole show for Jennifer because that's how she rolls. All right, here we go. Get in here. All right, link sent. By the way, if you're watching this on any other streaming service, you cannot get into the party unless you are a Restoration Rebel member on Facebook. So if you're a member in there, I post up the link. You can get in here. You can talk to Mr. Maui himself directly. But you got to be a member. There she is. All right. She was trying to figure out her stuff. Late to the party, but always stylish. How are you, Jennifer?
Taking care of all my customers.
I love it. I love it. Okay. One more thing before we get too far down the road. Let me get my comments turned back on here. Notice up here, there's some new logos. Notice down there somewhere, the Total Claim Alliance. I am, for now, advertising my own initiatives right now on this page. But if you wanted your company name and logo in front of the Restoration Rebels and the rest of the Restoration Nation every single week, you too, for the low price of something, can talk to me about renting out this space. I'm opening up the Rebel Group for some revenue producing opportunities, right? There we have it. All right, I've said my piece. Tonight I want to talk about this. There was a stream. There was a LinkedIn thread that Mr. Jay Webb was so kind to chime in on. Interesting stuff. But before that, what's up with our Maui update? Mr. Robert Larson, how you been, man?
Good. So over in Lahaina, they're trying to wrap up the residential side. And I think they're trying to shoot for the for August on the residential side, which it seems like it's probably going to happen. On the commercial side, that's a whole another story. But the main focus has been to get the residents able to have their lots completed and the ability to rebuild if they do so choose to. So,
is anyone when are they going to start breaking ground? Do you think?
Like for on the rebuild. So I believe last update I heard was 30 permits were issued already. I know one guy, the first guy who got his permit already broke ground. I drove by his a few times. So nice. He's headway. I think, obviously you're still waiting on inspectors and all that side of it, but he was all plumbing was in. They're waiting for an inspector to approve so they can pour the slab.
All right. And what was that? How many years ago? Was it 2? Was it last year? Was it, man?
1 year ago, yeah.
Ever since COVID, my brain doesn't process math or dates well. Okay, so last year, so a year ago, and the first people are breaking ground. That's, I mean, for what it is, for all the challenges of operating on a small island in the middle of the freaking ocean, I don't think that's bad. Jay, what do you think? Jay, you got to introduce yourself when you're done answering the question. What do you think about that timeline of in a year ago they had these fires, and we're just now getting the first building owners rebuilding. Is that a legitimate timeline as a PA?
As a public insurance adjuster, it's every claim is obviously different. When you deal with these catastrophes, one of the things you have to take into mind is that the communities they're helping everybody. Everybody's helping everybody, and so realistically, I always try and put myself in my client's shoes. So if I were in Lahaina and my house burned down, and my sole focus was to move back into my house, I'd be excommunicated from the entire community at that point. So
I don't so loud.
Yeah, it is. You do more, you say more in your actions in life than you do in your words. And I think my sister lives in Maui. She lives in Kihei, and she tells me all the time that Hawaii is all about the people, and it's all about the community. And so that doesn't surprise me that the community banded together and really helped one another through the circumstantial losses. So
it's good. All right. So who are you, stranger? Stranger danger here on the Restoration Roundtable. Who's this guy?
I'm just a big hillbilly in Montana. That's an insurance nerd. So I live in the mountains of Western Montana. My name's Jay Webb to everybody out there. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, man.
I am the chief adjuster, lead adjuster for Summit Claim Partners. I own Web Consulting based out of Missoula, Montana. I do a lot of work with contractors mostly in the roofing world, helping their teams excel in the sales, excel in their value propositions. But my primary focus is adjusting files. And so Summit Claim Partners, we're just here to assist people through the process of restoration after a covered peril. And we do a lot of larger losses all across the country. I was in 4 states last week, so that was pretty fun.
Yeah, and then 3 more before that. Was it 2 weeks ago you and I sat down?
Yeah.
Here's the deal. Here's one of these rules that I didn't know I had until I'm saying it right now. If you find yourself in Bend, Oregon, and you just freaking call me, we're going to get together and have a meal. We're going to get drinks. That's exactly what happened. Jay said, "Hey, I'm in town." He was actually up at Billy Chinook, right at the lake. "Hey, I'm in town. You want to get together?" The answer is always going to be yes. So that's the invite to the world. Answer is always going to be yes. It was great. Thanks. He bought dinner. He bought lunch. Man, thanks for lunch, Jay.
Of course.
Jay, are you close to Billings?
I'm on the other side of the state, actually, because I'm managing a project over here. I'm owner representing a school district. So
I just figured you knew Jimmy P. Jimmy Pearson?
No, I do not, actually.
One of the authors of the S520 original.
Oh, there you go.
Really? Oh, the new one or the old one?
I'm about
The old one.
give or take 7 hours from Billings. Montana's kind of big.
It is. It is.
God's country.
It sure is. All right, let's waste no time. Let's waste no further time. How about All right, we got to know everybody. Jay, thanks for being on the show. Let's talk about something real. Let me see if I can pull this up here.
Where's Joe?
Get it going kind of like so. And there's a stranger. Stranger danger. Speaking of stranger danger. Okay, you're not a stranger. What's up, Adam? How you been, man?
How you doing, man?
Great. You made me do it. You made me spray that link all over the place. So whoever else shows up tonight is on you. It's on you.
Some randoms. Unqualified randoms.
That's right. Okay. Do you have something playing in the background there?
Do I? Can you hear it?
It's looping. Sounds like it's looping.
Is that better?
That's better.
Okay.
That's better. Okay, here we go. This is what I'd like to talk about tonight. And, if we have time for something else, let's go into it. Okay, that's hard to read. Can I do it? Like, that's better to read. All right, so this is an example of a letter that I've been, frankly, promoting, encouraging my contractor clients to send these types of letters. And I thought it was so good that it was good enough to post on LinkedIn because I was so proud of it. No sooner did I post this than the preeminent defense attorney in the country, Mr. Badger, jumps on the thread, and he says, if you're writing this letter as coming from a contractor, which appears to be the case, unless you are in a state that allows you and you have a valid AOB, 4 letters come to mind when reading this letter. UPPA. Dun, dun, dun. So, Mr. J. Webb, what is it? What is UPPA?
And practice. No.
Yeah. UPA or UPPA or UPPA is the unauthorized practice of public adjusting.
Unlicensed.
Unlicensed or unauthorized in
Depends
Montana.
on the state.
Yeah, in Montana it reads as unauthorized.
Depends on the state.
And all it's saying is basically you're trying to be a PA and you're not licensed. Shame on you.
Right. So if you are, by the way, if you're watching this and you want to get in on this thread, you have to follow me on LinkedIn, Andrew G. McCabe, LinkedIn. Just find me and you'll find this thread. So there's a bunch of people that jumped in on here, but I think it's important to figure out what are we talking about here. So I'm going to read the letter for those of you on a podcast listening. And this is the letter that, it's a form letter essentially. And the basis of this letter is it's a follow-up to a previous letter. So the first letter in this series goes something like, hey, we got your rebuttal. Here's the reasons why we think we're owed what we're owed. But in the spirit of, it always has a section at the end, in the spirit of good faith negotiating in order to bring a swift conclusion to this matter. We're going to offer you
Andy,
4.5.
we're getting some
I think it's
background
Jay.
noise.
I think it's Jay is breathing directly.
Kind of breathing into the mic. You're all just
right into it. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Jay.
Or is it me? No, it's not me.
Somebody has asthma.
Okay, so the first letter in this series is a sincere attempt on behalf of the mitigating contractor who has an outstanding bill. It's a sincere attempt to settle a settlement for a quick payment of that bill. So that's going to include some sort of incentive, which is like, hey, I'll give you 4.5% off. I'll give you a 7% discount on my invoice if you can pay me within 10 days, right? So this comes after that. Okay. Dear Mr. Adjuster, I hope this message finds you well. Following our ongoing discussions and in the spirit of good faith, our company, represented by Mr. Contractor, has made several reasonable deductions to our original invoice concerning the mitigation work for Mrs. Insured. These adjustments were intended to move towards a mutually acceptable resolution and clearly demonstrate our commitment to collaborative negotiation. I think they're getting hung up on that word, among others. Unfortunately, it seems that your team has not reciprocated these efforts. Given the lack of substantive progress and to avoid further prolonging this matter, this serves as notice that if payment reflecting our reduced invoice is not received within 10 days from the date of this email, we will be compelled to rescind our offer for the adjusted amount. Meaning, hey, we offered to take this and this and this off our bill. That was a good faith effort in one way. You did not reciprocate that, and the 10 days has passed. We are rescinding our discount offer. Right? Should this occur, please be advised that we will issue a new invoice to Mrs. Insured for the full original amount, plus applicable late fees as per outlined in our contract with the property owner. We wish to resolve this matter expediently and amicably, but we'll take necessary actions to secure fair compensation for services provided. Okay, so that is half of the people on this thread agree that is the unlicensed practice of public adjusting. What say you, group?
Well, we actually have 4 states that have actually tried to control this narrative, and it's Florida, Texas, Oregon. I think there's one other state. Am I forgetting one? Florida, Oregon, Texas. They're the ones that are really trying to set the parameters for this.
Yeah,
And
Louisiana's pretty heavy on it too.
Louisiana's hitting hard.
Okay.
Yep.
What if you came at it where you just said that you were going to give them an opportunity not to be incurring any late fees instead of editing the invoice, that you're letting them know that this is your final warning before late fees start.
It is.
There's a few details in there. I fully support the letter. I believe contractors have the right to give
Defend their work.
discounts. One,
Yeah,
they
and give
defend their
discounts.
work. They have the right to give discounts. They have the right to rescind offers. There is nothing wrong with that part. There's a few verbiage issues in the letter that I think possibly could have been adjusted. However,
Yeah, but it's semantics. I mean, it's just language.
That's exactly what LinkedIn is it's people
That's
jumping over dimes or dollars to pick up dimes. They're doing all these little things that don't really matter. There's people policing the industry that really have no say in the industry in the first place, because at the end of the day, it's the people that are doing the creating work product for our clientele that actually create change. So I believe a contractor, when they go out and they say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Carrier, why is it okay for you to make construction decisions when you don't hold a contractor's license in a state, but I can't make a decision to rescind my offer of discount to reach your terms? How is that acting like a public adjuster? It's not.
They can't have it both ways.
No, you can't have it both ways. And it grinds my gears royally, and I deal with it all the time. But that's the whole reason I got licensed. I was a roofing contractor and general contractor. The whole reason I got into the industry was because a buddy of mine, his daughter put a toaster strudel in a toaster and lit the whole house on fire. So I had to figure it out. So I think there's some needed word changing in that letter you wrote, Andy, but beyond that,
that's just to get beyond I think what I'm reading between the lines in this thread is it was enough up against that big wide gray line that they had something to get their hooks into. Oh, that. But this would, I don't think first off, I don't think anyone's going to prosecute this. If a contractor sends this letter out, there's no one on the other side that's going to say, oh, that's UPPA, and turn them in and prosecute this. And even if they did, they'd stand no chance of winning that suit. And they know it. But here we are on LinkedIn where the word police are doing things. What do you think, Jennifer? Do you think, how much attention should we really pay to this legalese stuff when we're sending communications? Because we're not attorneys over here.
Well, I think just like anything, the indemnification has to not only come from the certificate of insurance, but also the contract. So I think if you are not quick to agree to some of the large companies that are asking to be indemnified with all that special wording, I think you're negligent as a contractor if you are not taking the time to looking at what they're asking you to put on that COI. Like some of you call me, you're like, just give them what they want. Can I have it right now? I'm trying to get on the job. I'm like, have you looked at what they want? Like, if you're not taking the time to scrub that contract, and I'm going to tell you guys, most of the time, if you have Adobe PDF, you can go slap that wording that they want of that contract in there, and you could just back out that whole harmless agreement and back out that waiver of subrogation, and they won't even know that it's not in there when you sign it and give it back.
Because they're not reading it.
They're not reading it either. It's just a stupid box checker. And when she gets the COI, Brittany, Kaylee, Haley, whoever that works in that office, she's just looking at the sample template next to your certificate. So she doesn't even know. I'm constantly like, why are you even agreeing to a $5 million umbrella for, a $20,000 job? Are you going to do $5 million worth of damage? Like,
these rules,
give her the 1 million, 2
follow,
million, and call it a day. Like, I'm probably the only broker who doesn't make any money because If you said, give me the COI for everything it says, I'd be like, are you
Well,
sure
because
you want to give them a 5
you get
million?
paid on the size of the premium.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean that makes sense.
So if you tell me like, oh, they need to start for 5 million, do I have that? And I'm like, no. Do you want it, or do you want me to send the sort over the way you got it and see if they kick it back or not? Let's not be dumb, you know.
I like that. I like that.
So yeah, I think there's a
Well-
lot to be said that, you know, there's a lot of really, really good contractors in this industry. They do really, really good work. They really care about the people. But when it comes to the business side, they're still not doing their due diligence. And their due diligence is to be very careful about how they're indemnifying Joe Blow. Because they want that job so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. COIs make me so nervous. I don't like them at all.
They should.
I mean, it's just, ugh. I mean, I've had to sign a few that really made me pucker. Like, ooh, this thing goes south. Yeah. You want to make sure that your company isn't going to be destroyed by
so that's
somebody
my
else's
point
mistake.
is when it comes to this part, even regarding this indemnification about what you're allowed to do with the contractor, I behoove you to go ahead and include something in that contract agreement that says like we have the freedom within 20, you know, something about we have the freedom to bill or invoice or adjust or within a 10% something. I don't know. I put something in there. Certainly, if you don't put it in there, you have no negotiating power.
Well, it's also tricky when in insurance for mitigation contractors and restorers, it's tricky when a adjuster comes back to you and says, hey, if you'll cut these numbers here, and then that desk adjuster gets back to you and delays a payment or continues to delay a payment. You're like, wait a second, I just took profits out of my company to meet your bottom line that they've set a target, you know, NTE, do not exceed claim payment of 100,000 on this job, whatever you do. Meanwhile, I just had a mitigation contractor bill $115,000 on a simple fire loss that was just a gut.
It happens.
Why are you running DHUs in a total loss anyways? What type of desk adjuster is going to authorize that and then pay that mitigation contractor $115,000? That's ludicrous. That is terrible due diligence. So there's got to be some checks and balances in it.
If what I didn't like about the whole thing, the whole tone of how this thread went was the what's good for the goose was not good for the gander. They are able to negotiate like really. I mean, it's borderline extortion is what some of these companies like Wardlaw are doing, right? Totally but it's a one-way negotiation, and they're hammering on. I mean, AccuServe. It's AccuServe's bad. Like it's 40 cents on a dollar with AccuServe, and I did one today. It's 40 cents, 64%. They wanted this guy to reduce his mitigation invoice. The services that were already provided, right? They're murdering people. It's extortion, but we're not allowed to negotiate. We're not allowed to hold people to terms from our side. I call bullshit. It's all about the contract. And that's where Ed Cross, thank you, Uncle Ed, for that book that I keep. I mean, this book is going to fall apart. That's how many times I've been through this thing. The collections, restoration collections. Everything starts with a contract. If it's in your contract, you can do it. If you say, hey, if you don't pay me by 30 days, there's a 5% late fee and a 60% admin charge per month until we're paid. If it's in your contract, you can charge for it. Air movers, $45 a day. Extra large DHU, $200 a day. If it's in your contract, you get to charge it. Now, when these guys come back and say that, oh, well, that's not industry standard, bullshit, show me the goddamn standard. They don't know the standard. They misquote the standard every single day. So if we are unable to push back as contractors, right? If this is true, we might as well just walk, right? We're dead men walking if we accept this. So we can't.
Well, for me, my classic line lately is from our understanding of the S500 standard. Like your understanding and what the standard actually is two different things. And
yes.
And I could literally go into your program on Restoration Rebels on ChatGPT and type in, and it'll tell me the chapter and the page of the standard with all the breakdown, which is amazing. I love what you put forth, and I can rebut almost every single thing that they say with actual facts and the real standards. The
actual standards.
And the actual standards, and it like I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot by even bringing up S500 standards because they don't even know what they're talking about. And if I can literally pull it out of the book and show that to them, they have no leg to stand on.
Yeah, well, that's they should have to defend it.
Yes,
they should absolutely have to defend their position. And it's amazing what happens when we tell them to. A lot of these guys just fall apart. It's a house of cards.
Well, what are you going to say after that? Once you give them the facts and the definitions, once they go against that, would that, in my opinion, if they rebut that and even take these facts and take it to the next contractor and put that same bullshit forward, wouldn't they be acting in bad faith at that point when they already know that these are the actual facts of S500 and the IICRC standards? If they know that, but I don't know.
I think it's arguable. Bad faith.
It's arguable. Yeah.
Bad faith is proving is hard.
That's sure. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's a stretch, but
isn't the biggest thing that they're trying to look for that is like the more nefarious stuff, like you figure out how to way to embed the deductibles. You know, that's the big one they're trying to get rid of. Like,
what you're 100% right on that. With UPPA, UPPA, whatever you want to call it. What they're really trying to target right now, and it generated, as we were speaking earlier in the show out of the South, is they're trying to target the soliciting of public insurance adjuster services out of the industry of roofing sales.
Yeah.
That's where it started. That is exactly where it started. Trust me,
because these guys were
thousands of roofs.
These guys were too good. They were better. That's what gets me is the carriers know they were just outplayed.
Oh yeah.
So what are they going to do? They're going to buy legislation. They're going to buy senators.
Sure.
And judges because they can't win a fair game.
That's it. When you can take a roofing salesman in a big storm who can go in there, go to the client's door, knock on the door, hop on the roof for 10 minutes, take a few photos, get back down, talk to the client, say, hey, sign this contingency agreement, authorizing me to perform the work if I get your roof approved. And you can do that from the front seat of your pickup, and you can make six figures over the course of 3 months. The incentive,
it's an incredible incentive.
So, and some of the laws are to protect the insureds, and that's also that the timelines have been really strong-armed, that you have only 30 days to get the work started or 14 days to be back on the job. Like these little nuances, I think, are better for the insured. The contractor shouldn't scoff on that. How can a contractor not think that if they get a signed agreement that they shouldn't at least start their work in 30 days? Like, give me a break.
Well, I think
that seems reasonable.
Yeah, there's multiple things that are wrong with that process, right? And I will agree that I mean, even a contingency fee on. I don't like this whole contingency thing for. You're essentially going for supplementals, right? You're playing a supplemental game,
Sure.
and there's guys that do it. There's guys that do it well, and I think there's guys that do it with a high level of integrity. But there's a whole lot of guys that don't do it with integrity, and it feels like a loophole, you know. But I think done right, like given enough notice, right? If I'm going to play that game, if I'm going to play that game as Andy McCabe, the person, I'm going to go into it right away and say, hey, adjuster, we're going to go ahead and get this job started for what you've offered. But there are some things that we're probably going to add to this thing. But I'm telling them right up front, hey, you're missing X, Y, and Z, and this is where our estimate's going to be at the end of the day. But we're going to get started for that ACV payment. Right, Jay, what do you think about that approach? Just communicating, telegraphing that right up front.
You can definitely do that as a contractor. You're within your rights, because basically what the insurance company is going to do is they're going to issue that payment, right? And say, hey, Mr. Homeowner, this is what you can use to start. But I always love it, because on the scope of loss sheet, on the very front page, it says, if your contractor's estimate is higher than ours, then let us know. But it says before you start any work. I implore all people I speak to, mitigation, anybody, come to a formal agreement on price before you touch a lick of the project. And the reason for that is because you're creating baseline understanding, and you're creating baseline understanding that there could be potential supplements as well. So why are we restorers overloading ourselves, burdening ourselves with costs, with salaries, with expenditures, with overhead, with losses on jobs, because we didn't do our due diligence ahead of time? It just baffles me, coming from a contractor's perspective. Have I lost on jobs? Yes, but let's create a baseline first.
But
because contractors want to get in the door, and they want to get the work, and they don't want to give the person sticker shock. So they are trying to cultivate this bond and this I'm your rescuer, and they want to be like, we'll worry about the little details later. Those aren't the little details later. Those are the important details.
Those are the important details.
You need to say, boy, this is a $20,000 job at least. You don't come in there and be like, oh, we could probably knock it out for a couple thousand. What's your deductible? Like, that's fake news.
Yeah. And what they're doing, what those folks are doing without intentioning it, and it's affecting the rest of us, is what's the assumption from the other side looking in at that? The assumption is, of course they did it because they knew they had all their money, they had all their costs covered with that adjuster's number. And all they're going after with a supplement is their profit. So that's where my head goes, is, well, shoot, if you're willing to do that work, like you're incurring that cost, if you're willing to take that risk, I'm betting most of these guys have their costs covered and then some with that initial ACV estimate, no matter how bad it was written. Right? Well,
yeah, there's always an anomaly, right? I remember we had a hailstorm in Kalispell 2 years ago. And
okay.
There were some nice properties.
Better late than never. Joe Spears, welcome to the show.
Flathead Valley is a very affluent area. So I was seeing some adjusters write depreciation on like 10-year-old roofs at 85%.
85%. Yeah.
85%. I'm sitting there going,
you're not making money on that one.
That is atrocious. No. But generally speaking, you're correct. You're going to have your hard costs basically covered in your ACV payment if that roof or if that project isn't depreciated at over 60%.
Yeah, I agree. But generally, as a roofer, your costs per square to produce the work, and you can do quick math on the cost, estimate per square from the adjuster. You do that math. So, if you're willing, and that's what I've said all along, and I've actually made the argument that if you have done the work and you have accepted that adjuster's ACV payment, you are not owed a supplement. If you haven't said a word since up until that point, you haven't communicated anything about a supplement up to that point, but then you're done, and then you slap this surprise supplement on the adjuster, I'm going to argue all day you're not owed that supplement
They know
because you
that.
did not.
They
What's
know
that?
that. They know
And
that.
they know that.
Yeah,
Of course
they
they
know
do.
that. They're hoping that you forget.
I agree with that. Like,
Yeah, it's dangerous.
yeah, like you don't. That's like that's like having surprise fees on the end when you go buy a car or whatever. No, we know. You told me this. You told me the roof was $12,900. You never once came to me and said, "Hey, wait, we found something else that
That's
would
not
affect
enough
the price."
money, or we found
So
something else.
I've been hearing phone calls where the price is being rattled on the phone about how they'll approve it and they're going to go ahead and let them do it. And then the electronic signature gets sent over. Nobody's reading the fine print. You already signed that electronic sign. They're like, you accepted it. It's your job to read it. We might have said 12,000 on the phone. We sent you 9,500. Too bad.
Oh
Okay,
no!
that's not what they're doing though. Is they're just saying,
Really?
"Okay, we've already got." I mean, you got to understand. There's a shit ton of roofer gurus and people out there that try to help roofers make more money. And I've straight heard them say, if you're supplementing for 50% more than what the initial adjuster's estimate is at, you're leaving money on the table. Like it's the way that even though they're part of the restoration business, it's like a motorcycle versus the car, and they operate on a completely different methodology, mentality, and wavelength than restoration contractors. I can get as a restoration contractor, I can get a roof paid out at $900 a square with minimal effort. If I come in as a roofer and I try to ask for more than $600, they automatically will treat me like shit because most roofers don't process the paperwork the right way. They don't handle things correctly.
Yeah, and it's a perpetuating cycle, and before you know it, every roofer is a scumbag, or every roofer is using 100% illegal labor. Every roofer doesn't have an employee; they're just moving. They just change LLCs every couple of years to avoid the paperwork. I just rattle off really poor broad generalizations that they're there for a reason. How do we start to get those types of folks out of the industry, or is it even possible?
So speaking from my history as a roofer,
yeah, I'm with you, Adam.
the ugly roofer. I had great experience working insurance claims back in the day. What I've been imploring people to do is just step away from it. If you're a restoration person, get somebody who is licensed. Obviously, let's be real, there's ulterior motives. I am a public insurance adjuster.
Yeah.
But what we do is we work with the contractor to protect the contractor's profits.
That's what I liked about your model when you explained it to me when we had dinner. Or we had lunch over at 10 Barrel Brewing. Oh yeah. I had the steak sandwich. Oh my God. We both did.
Yeah, it was delicious.
So good. Your model, like PAs and contractors, restorers, generally, let's be honest, do not get along. Right? There's dogs versus cats, bad blood that goes back decades at this point. No one really knows why at this point, but it's still there. So what I heard from you, Jay, was let's find a way to preserve those profits at the front end and provide a service in that justifies my fee and then some, right? Because if you're coming in, and this is where part of the bad blood comes in, if you're coming in and taking 10% right off the top and you're not adding any value to the claim, well, yeah, the restorer is taking a 10% haircut. And that's wrong. That you should, if you're doing that as a PA, you're not adding value to the claim as a PA. What are you doing, bro?
Yeah, you're not indemnifying your client.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you though. It was good.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. It's what we try and do at Summit is we try and work with the contractor. So the contractor basically acts as, boots on the ground. They're the ones bringing in the claims. Let's be honest. Every homeowner out there isn't right when a hailstorm hits, they're not like, oh my God, I need a PA.
No.
They're like, okay, I need to talk to a roofer, or a flood happens.
Yeah.
They're not like,
Need
I
a
need a
roofer.
public insurance.
They don't even know what a PA is at that point.
That's
right?
exactly
Yeah, they do not.
One of the other issues that is
So they're getting
systematic on the roofing side that it's not present on any other side is the fact that if I have a water damage, if I have a fire, my deductible probably gets absorbed with the contents, and that's not a big deal. When I have a water damage, though, people understand they have to pay their deductible. They understand they're losing something on the contents on the fire, which covers their deductible. But for whatever reason, it is beat into every homeowner's head that if I'm getting my roof replaced, my deductible doesn't apply. Like they're going to waive my deductible.
We've been changing that though, Joe. It's what I started teaching contractors, roofing contractors specifically to do is when you go to your homeowner, okay, and they want to sign a contract with you and you need your down payment to get the project started, to procure materials, all that type of stuff, collect the deductible check on a separate check. Because what's going on right now in these, and in the memo line tag, deductible for claim number, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I do that is because I've had clients be audited after a massive hailstorm, after a wildfire, or
they audited the homeowner.
Yes, they audited the homeowner and sent them a letter saying we need proof of deductible payment. Thankfully, that client had written a deductible check with proof in the memo line indicating that they were paying it. They pay it on a separate check, and then they pay the remaining deposit on their second check.
Who do they pay that to?
Contractors.
Okay.
They pay their deductible to the contractor.
What about when they issue payment minus deductible? Is that not the same thing?
No, it's owner
It's literally the insurance carrier saying, this is how much we're paying minus your deductible. And that's where it drives me insane. The whole people are like, "Oh no, my check's only for $13,000. It's right here. My deductible." No,
I'm with you 100%, Joe. It cracks me up all the time.
Explain it again for those of us that are slow. Explain that again in simple words.
If you file a claim, no matter what, the homeowner has to pay the deductible. Your exact.
They have to pay somebody something.
They have to. No, they're responsible for paying their deductible amount to their contractor.
It's
100%.
It's part of the insurance contract of good faith. Okay, that they
otherwise, if the
perform their
contractor
duties.
pays the deductible for them, it's fraud.
Yep, 100%.
And
So
then-
Fraud.
what it is, just think of it as
files,
it's a felony.
literally an invoice saying this is how much the insurance company owes on your claim. So if it says less deductible, that's saying this is how much the insurance will pay.
Okay.
You still owe your deductible.
I must apologize. I have been in this industry for so long. Why did I not know that? I didn't know that. I did not know there was an actual felony.
Oh.
That's scary.
It's a felony.
Well, I found out that
You're the boss, Andy.
Well, I mean, like I found
You'll
out
hear
today that
contractors all the time.
in a
They'll say,
lot
like,
of states-
"Oh, I'll eat your deductible for you."
I got nothing. But here's
policyholder responsibility.
I mean, I found out today though. Like I know a couple PAs, I won't mention who, that their belief is that their fee is part of the indemnification process.
Yep.
So, like, if I write, let's just say theoretically, I wrote a $10,000 estimate, and their fee's 2%, buff it up 2%, submit that to the carrier. That way, my fee's paid for, and I'm not hamstringing the contractor.
I mean, we just switched gears from first to sixth here, but I think that's Cal Spoon, if I'm not mistaken. But he shows that fee. He shows that
companies
fee.
will not
Show it
pay
in your additional expenses.
And-
Right in Xactimate. Just add it
And
in.
the argument is, and I kind of agree with it, is if the carrier was doing their job, if the carrier was actually helping their insured down this path of filing the claim and handling the claim, if the insurance company was doing a decent enough job, we wouldn't have to be involved.
What I was told, and
But
Jay, you might be able to speak to this. What I was told was that just like how having your IEP can be billed separate from the main policy, it goes on the overhead and expense account for the claim, or
Claims
having
expense,
a third party consultant like Jay,
Same
Jay
with
is
engineering.
They come out
Engineering,
as a third-party
architectural, you can share that. I've seen that happen. Yeah.
Adjuster will submits his bill to the homeowner submits it to the insurance company as for reimbursement. It can go against a carrier's expense account, but you can't apply it directly to the main dwelling policy account. And that's does that make sense?
So I know what you're getting at, Joe. The issue with that is clarity. So
Yes.
our job as public insurance adjusters in the realm of the restoration world is to provide clarity to the claim. What an insurance adjuster, I don't really give a flying squirrel if you're a PA, if you're an IA, if you're a staff adjuster, anything. We are licensed to determine proximate causation and how the policy contract of good faith will indemnify the client. What buckets of the policy are going to pay for the damages? That is our only job as public insurance adjusters.
Dude, say those three things
IAs,
again. I'm taking notes. Proximal cause, determining proximal cause.
Proximate cause. And then
Okay.
we have to identify what buckets of the policy are going to pay for the said damages. That is an adjuster's job. Our job is not to argue with contractors. Our job is not to argue with insurance adjusters as PAs. My job is to prove
So
how
what I'm
the
not
policy
hearing,
contract pays.
here's what I'm not hearing in that. Quantify the loss.
No, that's not my job.
I think 100.
Your job is to act as my attorney that I hired. My attorney has paralegal.
Boom.
My attorney
I'm going to have an army of angry PAs out my door tomorrow. They're going to be pounding on my door.
Here's exactly why a PA their job is not to prove the amount of the loss. I am not a contractor. How do I know what the cost is?
Well, I think that it only ratchets it up a little bit when you throw in the fact that you're working on a contingency fee basis.
Yeah. Then I'd have
Of course,
bias.
you're going for the highest possible because you get paid more.
My job 100% is to go to my client and say, I can help you with your policy contract of indemnification. Okay. With this contract, what contractors would you like to use? Oh, you want to use Andy and Joe Restoration Crazy Guys? Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard really great things about those dudes. They're the best, So I'm going to go to the contractor and I'm going to say, hey, Andy and Joe, what is it going to cost to do this job?
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go
Jay,
ahead.
You defend it.
For Jay. So you're a public adjuster, correct? Right?
Yes.
So, what state are you from?
I'm from Montana.
Montana.
My home state.
I'm in Illinois. So are you able to practice in Illinois and do everything that all the laws and rules and regulations apply the same in every state?
No.
Florida, New York.
Yeah.
Texas.
So I purposefully don't work in Florida or Louisiana. One, Louisiana's on the old Napoleonic code system, and I'm not French. I don't know how to read French. I don't want to.
You don't speak Creole. Yeah.
I don't speak Creole. I don't even like crawfish. Let's be real. It's too much work. So why would I want to eat crawfish when I can eat shrimp?
Too much work.
Oh, come on, Montana. Y'all got the Rocky Mountain oysters. Like that's
yeah, man. Hey, I've cowboyed
Hello.
in my life, man. I love it. Go to a Brandon, eat some Rocky Mountain oysters. That's a good old time.
Wow.
But to answer your question, is public insurance adjusters, depending on what your home state is, you can file for what's called reciprocity in other states. And so my Montana license is reciprocal with tons of states across the country. I try and focus only where there's reputable contractors that I want to work with, because I will not and do not work with contractors that are committing injustice to our insurance industry, because I absolutely hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm like a little kid, you know. It's
a problem.
But what it boils down to is, if I have a client call that says, "Hey Jay, I heard about you from, Joe Blow down in Oklahoma, and they said you did a great job supporting them and representing them. I live in Chicago. Would you be willing to get licensed here and come help us?" Yeah, I'd be willing. Sure. But I interview all my clients, all potential vendors, and I say,
but as a public adjuster, you are still allowed to adjust, negotiate, and settle the property damage claim.
Yep,
that's what you're allowed to do.
Yep.
I mean, effectively,
Adam, wait. I think we got to go back, because Adam, I don't think you finished your question. You asked a leading question, but I don't think you asked the actual question, or did you?
I think I kind of did. Well, I was asking whatever applies in his state, does it really transfer over to all the other states as far as rules and regulations and
mostly except those 4.
Yeah, I think he kind of did answer the question, basically.
I misread your body language, bro. Sorry.
Not a problem.
I think I threw the conversation off with crawfish. Let's be real.
You did.
I mean, this is what I tell everybody.
I like crawfish.
I'm not a PA, obviously, but this is how I've always explained to my homeowners. If you need an adjuster, if you're confident your claim should have been covered and they're telling you no, or you're confident that they're not trying to give you enough money to do the job and the scope of work's not right, you need a PA. My job as an estimator for a contractor, for whoever I'm working for at the time, all I care about is the scope of work. Is do me and you, Jay, if you're the desk together, we're only here talking dollars and pennies. I don't care about the money. Do you agree with my scope of work? Yep. Okay. Here's the price. That's how I quote unquote negotiate or discuss.
So,
but Jay's forte is.
But if you don't like my price, there's an appraisal process to argue the price.
Yeah.
You don't need that. We're here.
The forte of a public adjuster is to interpret the policy for the
correct.
Insured. That's when they come on board. Correct. When they don't understand deductibles and co-insurances and ACV versus replacement, they call a public adjuster. Yeah.
Well, but you just qualified everybody.
I have to preface with this part. Several of you fire water restoration contractors do have package insurance general liability policies, which do not allow you to do tear-offs for roofs. However, if you belong to TPAs, they're always trying to tell you that they want you to be a full service provider, and they want you to say that you'll do all your roofing, you'll self-perform it. However, a lot of you guys are not even contractors, not to mention not licensed roofing contractors. So if while we're having all this roof conversation, you all get this harebrained idea because you think there's a good profit margin for roofing, you better read your policy, because it's probably pretty likely that you don't not have coverage to be doing full-on tear-offs and advertising to do so.
I would bet good money.
I've got
not to mention that
for everybody.
One more thing I have to say. More than likely, if you're bored, read your policy. You have a water intrusion exclusion on that policy. So if you forget that the tarp blows off in the middle of the night because you thought you secured the property and there's more damage to that property, it's not going to be another homeowner's claim. It's going to be your ass. Your policy is going to have an exclusion, and you're going to be writing a check.
You're going to be I worked a claim exactly like that.
Rougher.
I worked a claim exactly like that here in Bend, and I was flabbergasted that it wasn't covered, but it wasn't
But why,
covered, and then we're talking tens of thousands of dollars of damage because
with all due respect, though,
Additional
why-
a
damage?
storm rolled through.
Why
No,
should
a storm
an
rolled
insurance
through.
company?
This wasn't a loss until the storm rolled through while they were pulling the roof
I
off,
know.
and then it
But
became a loss
Here's
and
the
not
deal.
covered loss.
Why should an insurance company
Wow.
become a work warranty policy? If you
Sure.
didn't do a good job covering up with that tarp and you did shitty work, then that's on you.
Well,
So
Does
Can
that
I-
loss fall on the
that's not
contractor then?
fine.
I'd like to say,
Well, hold on,
This is
Joe.
what
You've
I'll
been
tell
waiting,
you.
Joe.
The
I
amount
got a
of
hard stop
people-
at 6:30 though. By the way, so keep going.
The amount of people, though, that they put the tarp on there and then they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to submit. They're trying to negotiate. They're trying to get the claim filed. And the adjusters backpedaling so hard that it's 3-4 months later and they're saying, hey, well, we got to go back out there. I'm not paying for another tarp. You already tarped it once. How does that fall back on me as a contractor's policy because of craftsmanship? Like a tarp is a temporary barricade. It's not a permanent fix.
I don't. If
So
it stays there more than a matter of weeks,
Yeah.
there's no way you should be liable for a temporary covering.
so if it's an all perils policy, I
Okay.
had one of these recently in Utah. If it's an all perils policy where craftsmanship is not otherwise excluded,
And then if it's not
then
included, it's
Then
included.
it's covered.
it's included.
Well,
Ah.
that's
So what
why
it-
on all
so
these
what ends up
policies-
so what ends up happening is, and roofers see this all the time based on crafts. We're not paying for it because it didn't have 6 nails across the common bond perfectly spaced. We're going to
Sure.
exclude it based on craftsmanship. And I'm like,
Sure.
well, okay, so let's figure out, Mr. Adjuster, what is the proximate cause? Not what is
Mhm.
the
What's the
exclusion.
loss? Yeah.
What is
yeah.
what is the primary causation that made the chain reaction of events? Okay.
This is why
What
I
was the
tell
first
every
domino?
mitigation- This is why I tell
First
every
domino
mitigation
was covered.
company- I
That's
tell
a
every
10
mitigation
cent
company,
word, causation. I
don't
love
be
that word.
afraid. You know,
My
you don't
favorite
need to
word.
be afraid. You don't have to be afraid if you break a countertop, if you damage the tile floor. They're always like, oh, we're going to end up buying it. No, 90% of homeowner policies are all peril. The only thing that you need to worry about is proving that you didn't do it with malicious intent for a subrogation claim against you. But otherwise,
Wait a
we
minute.
broke the countertop. The adjuster
Wait a
cannot
minute.
force you to buy
Wait,
that countertop. It's part of the claim.
Wait.
It
I'm
has
Yes.
to. It has to be
Wait,
a
I'm
covered
sorry.
peril.
I'm happy homeowner. You're there
Yes.
to fix my claim, and you're going to add another 10,000 on my claim because you dumbasses broke the brand new tile. Like, no.
Well,
I'm not
look,
gonna-
So-
there's a 90% chance that countertop is going to get broken when you take it off. Like we're going to do our best to take it
Dude.
off, but there's a 90% chance it's going to get broken.
It's exactly what I'm about to
So
say. Hey,
let me ask you a
Jennifer,
question
you're
on-
the one
yeah.
that told us to try to save that countertop when we knew full well it was going to break all day.
Especially around the sink. The sink around the sink is going to break every time. Yeah.
How about a fire loss on a hill where the client has a gravel road, and the only way to get all that material out of there is trucks and semis and dump trucks
Yeah.
and
We're
equipment.
going to
It's
re-gravel the
added
driveway
cost.
at the end.
We're gonna re-gravel the driveway because it's part of the unbroken chain of events caused by a
Concurrent
proximate
causation.
Proximate cause.
Now,
love
if
it.
my dump
We're
truck
gonna
driver is
wait.
a dumbass and backs
I didn't even
up
think
into
about that. That's good to
gravity,
know,
right,
too.
like Back to the
Yeah.
Future.
Concurrent causation.
All
Yeah,
right.
that-
we are going to end on
exactly.
that. I got to be disciplined. I got chicken to cook for the wife. So I'm
Hey,
glad.
thanks you all for
everyone
having
made
me.
it. Jay, I'll make sure you get the invite every other Thursday, 5:30 Pacific.
Sounds
Adam,
great.
I'm going to figure out how to get you a link more consistently there, brother. Jennifer, always good to see you. And Joe, better late than never, man. We'll see you next time.
See you, Joe.
You guys have a great night.
See you.
Thanks, guys.